The unmistakable voice of Brian Henneman on vocals and guitar, Mark Ortman on drums, Keith Vogeley on bass, along with lead guitarist John Horton, who became a member of the Bottle Rockets in 2003 and remained with them until their final album, Bit Logic, in 2018. John, a multi-instrumentalist, had previously played in a number of bands. His first one, Blind Mary, morphed into the New Patrons of Husbandry, and his band resume also includes Bell's Star, Kamikaze Cowboy, Magnolia Summer, and another band with Henneman, Diesel Island. In March of 2021, Brian announced that the Bottle Rockets would stop playing and recording. He expressed to the fans a desire to stay home and be a good husband, a good neighbor, a responsible homeowner, and a little dog's daddy. John Horton now plays lead guitar with Sunbolt.
Won't say I told you so when I get the urge to go. I hope you know you better give me room.
You're listening to Frets with DJ Fey. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned. John Horton, thanks for being here.
Sure, my pleasure.
A lot of people take up an instrument because an older sibling played or maybe the parents played. You took up guitar after your mom threw out the family television. Is that right?
Yeah, basically.
I read that somewhere.
Yeah, that's about what happened. I was bored, but I had been wanting to, learn how to play guitar.
It was on your list.
Yes, it absolutely was on my list.
And did you teach yourself?
For quite a while, probably for a year or two. I spent some time going to school for music as well. I've had a lot of lessons as well. But yeah, primarily self-taught. Yeah.
And where was your childhood home?
A couple places, rural Franklin County and Washington, Missouri.
Okay.
Those are kind of the main places. Grew up a little bit in University City, a little bit kind of, I guess it's Wildwood now, but Pond.
Out west.
I have a few really old memories of living out there.
And it was somewhat of a musical family, right?
Yeah. I think it's a very musical family. And I think at least in my family, it's maternally passed. And this didn't really become apparent to me until a Weir family reunion, which is the Weirs are my grandmother's family. And what dawned on me is that there was a handful of like professional musicians. My mom's cousin's son, Will Blade, is one of them. Will is he's pretty well-known organ player. He plays like Medeski, Martin and Wood, and like who's the drummer from Galactic? Like he does like he's kind of in the jazz kind of jam world. I think he's kind of a renowned organ player. I play. I'm a professional musician. My mom's younger brother Steve is a professional musician. Everybody kind of dabbles. There's a bunch of people that if they're not performing musicians, they at least play a little bit and can sing a little bit.
That's great.
But it's all I think your mom has to be like related to the Weir somehow in order. It's weird. It's very, because everybody who plays has a mother who is,
Oh, interesting.
It is interesting. It is.
And I read also there's a connection to like an uncle who played with Mel and Tim.
Yeah, my mom's younger brother, Steve.
Huh.
He's pretty fabulous musician, actually. He's a really great bass player. You know, he can do that. He's got that, melodic 60s, 70s R&B bass
Soul.
thing. And yeah. And he can sing really well. And he can kind of like pick up. He's one of those people who just kind of like pick up an instrument and like make music on it. You know, he's really musical. But yeah, he spent some time playing on the road with Mel and Tim. And it really was him and my other uncle, their other brother, Tim, like at family gatherings, Steve and Tim would have guitars and, they would sit around and play. And, as a young kid, that was always completely engaging and fascinating, watching them, listening to them sit around and play Mr. Bojangles and, let's see, I'm trying to think what was on the repertoire.
Yeah, I had the 45 of Backfield in Motion when I was a kid.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that stuff was recorded at Muscle Shoals. So that's like
right.
On the records you're hearing like David Hood and, Roger Hawkins. And then I think they were on the Stax label for a while. Yeah.
Nice. In your school days, were there particular types of music you were drawn to back then, or like what kind of stuff were you listening to back then?
I got to come back to my family again. It was my mom's small but mighty record collection that sort of kicked everything off. I would say that and FM rock radio, around here, which KC is like the big one, but also, I remember really listening a lot to KWK and WMRY.
Oh yeah,
that was a great radio station for a while. Yeah, and I remember I remember a really great music program. KWMU used to have music programming, and there was a show called Pipeline.
I do remember that. Yeah.
And that was, I remember really tuning into that and really. Absorbing this stuff. But it starts with Mom's record collection.
Speaking of records, you're another musician who spent some time working at a record store.
Yes, Vintage Vinyl.
Which location of Vintage Vinyl?
There's only one.
Oh, was there only? Well, yeah. Oh, well, I guess I might, because I'm so old. I remember there was a smaller one down the street.
Yes, yeah. No, the
little... Yeah, shotgun.
What used to be the Varsity Theater.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's where I started working at Vintage.
Okay.
Yeah. But I remember the smaller location.
I do
very
too.
Well.
Yeah, we were talking about that recently. Where it was like really kind of small. I mean, it was like tiny. Short ceilings and everything too. But I worked for a while on the Loop at an ad agency, and I would sneak over to. Vintage Vinyl quite a bit to flip through the bins.
Yeah, that was a lesson. Working in Vintage Vinyl,
I bet.
More ways than one.
And I'm sure that exposed you to lots of new stuff. Or were you already you already decided what you were listening to?
I sort of had what did I have at Vintage Vinyl? I wouldn't call it an epiphany. It was more like a refining of the things that it was really about that time that I started to really discover and become a student of primarily older country music, but also a lot of other things too, R&B from 60s and 70s, blues, jazz, I guess largely what you could kind of call roots music, you know, like
Right.
older pop music, like 30s swing music, you know, big band stuff. Even, I mean, you know, that's kind of on the, I guess the fringes of the stuff that I was becoming a student of.
Right.
I like to think I was being a student of a lot of that stuff. But yeah, working there, you know, it's hard to describe. I guess being a Gen X person, the '90s in music, there was this kind of paradigm shift, which I enjoyed, but a lot of that stuff really left me cold, and that shift and kind of feeling a little left out of it, like it made me move even, you know, become even more of a Luddite.
I know exactly what you're saying.
Respect,
yeah.
you know.
Interesting.
After a fashion, I suppose. That was my first retail job too. So that was a real introduction to dealing with the public, which I never really had to do before. And man, everybody walks through that door at Vintage Vinyl. Everybody. It was daunting, thrilling, frustrating, you know, enlightening, also stupefying. It was a lot of things.
I saw a lot of good in-store performances there too.
Yeah, those were, yeah.
One of my favorite John Horton guitar solos. That's What Will I Do by Karate Bikini from their 2014 album, A Simpler Sugar. Well, what was the first band you were in?
Let's see. I guess maybe like a pickup band from some friends and acquaintances when I was going to school at Webster. That didn't really last very long. We had like one outdoor backyard gig. It was broken up by the police in Webster Groves.
Wow.
Yeah. And then what I would consider like the first real band was a band that I had with some friends from Washington, Missouri, where I grew up. When we moved there when I was 12, called Blind Mary. And that was kind of a mix of covers and originals. My friends were an introduction to the stuff that I had missed. That was before working at Vintage Vinyl. So it was an introduction to stuff that was cooler than the stuff that I was exposed to it at Vintage Vinyl. Maybe like trying to like all those. All my friends were and still are diehard REM fans.
Oh yeah,
like all these people I was a band with that band. They were, you know, so REM. Like we would cover some REM songs. Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers.
love them.
Let's see, what else we did? Like Lou Reed, you know, and Velvet Underground. Stuff like that. Some Doors tunes, which I was never really. I've always been kind of. I'm not really a Doors fan.
Kind of the same way. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm sort of the same way.
Yeah.
But you guys are writing some stuff too?
Yeah, you know, stuff kind of along that line. You know, like a sort of. Those guys were not very. I definitely had this sort of like hard rock mentality. I mean, you know, coming out of like I was and am still. A Rush fan, and Alex Lifeson is one of my favorite guitar players. So, and also, you know, Led Zeppelin, and so I have this kind of hard rock, you know, shell.
I think a lot of us do.
that is was formative. So all the stuff that my friends were bringing was new to me. That was the first real band. Yeah. And that kind of kicked along for a few years and then morphed into another band. And then that morphed into another band.
Well, in the St. Louis area, when you started getting, I mean, you played with quite a few bands. I mean, New Patrons.
Yeah. So that band was the third iteration of a band that started with Blind Mary.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's sort of, we would sort of accrete and lose people and kind of change, have a few stylistic change ups and, it kind of rolled along.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I remember seeing Rockhouse Ramblers at the Duck Room. I want to say like maybe 10 years ago, but was that was that when you guys got back? Did you
We did
play and then you got back together?
Yeah, that was like a reunion.
I thought that was like more
sorts.
of a reunion
Yeah,
show.
It was. Yeah.
And you were in Bell Star.
Yep, with Kip. Yeah, those are. I still play with. Every once in a while, I'll play with Kip. I play regularly with Dade and Gary Hunt and
Dade Farrar.
Dade Farrar
Yeah.
and Gary Hunt and Danny Kathreiner. Like the kind of the core of that we still play as Colonel Ford.
Right. Yeah. And then what about Kamikaze Cowboy?
Yeah, that was another kind of learning curve, I think. Yeah, one of Bob Reuter's musical iterations. Yeah.
Oh, Bob Reuter.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really, that whole, I guess when I moved to St. Louis, like in 94 or 3 or something. Yeah, those were really formative years. Learned a lot. Yeah. Hey, this is John Horton, and you're listening to Frets with DJ Fey.
So after the Bottle Rockets released Blue Sky around 2003, I think, you were asked to become a member of the band. How did that all come about?
I think playing with Diesel Island, really. Dade had left Diesel Island, and they were looking for a bass player. I was in town. I think Kip had asked me if I wanted to play bass in the band. Sure. Yeah, Bottle Rockets were down a guitar player. They did this kind of 3-piece thing for a while, and yeah, I think from playing in Diesel Island, that's sort of
okay. That was the Brian connection.
Yeah, and Mark, Mark
Ortman.
Yeah,
he's just, I don't know him, but he just seems perpetually happy and just seems like one of like the nicest guys in the world.
Mark is a beautiful human being. He really is.
I hear that from so many people that he's just like a pleasure to be around, and he just looks like he's enjoying life all the time.
He does. He's a special person. He really is.
Yeah.
Good dude. Seriously, he was my roommate on the road when we travel. Yeah, so I got to know him pretty well, and am better for it.
What if it was possible to get local fresh groceries delivered right to your front door? You could take up guitar lessons with all that free time. I know a guy. Or learn the tuba. I don't give tuba lessons, but my point is, you'll have the extra time. Instacart gives you unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. That's way better than the other guys that nickel and dime you every time you use their app. Forget that one ingredient you need to make Aunt Bess's spaghetti sauce? Ugh, more frustrating than a broken B string. Instacart can deliver that that ingredient right to your front door faster than a Roy Clark guitar solo. You can shop multiple stores, find deals and offers in your area to help you save money, and every item is hand-selected by shoppers based on your preferences. No more rock-hard avocados, and they'll keep that carton of eggs safe from cracking, too. To start a 14-day free trial, follow the link in today's show notes to let Instacart know that DJ Fey, that's me, sent you, and to help support Frets with DJ Fey. And remember, stay tuned. Well, the Bottle Rockets were putting out a lot of great stuff, but there were problems. I don't even know them, but they seem that I heard there were problems with like record companies either going out of business or different issues that were just kind of.
There's a litany of. It's just the music business,
right?
You know, like that shit. It just happens.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even really know. There's really no explaining. I like the deal with Atlantic. Like, let's see if I remember this correctly. I mean, I wasn't in the band when they were on Atlantic, but I heard the story often enough that even I have a little PTSD from that.
Sure. Well, I mean, that kind of stuff can really derail a band at times. And it seems like Brian and Mark were just undeterred and determined to keep things going with you and with Keith Vogeley.
Yeah. Steady rolling Bottle Rockets. That's kind of how it was. I think good part of that determination was Mark Ortman's
optimism.
Well, yeah, his wanting. I tell people that really the band was kind of Mark's band after a fashion. He's the guy who was able and willing to kind of keep the infrastructure that you need to have to keep a band going.
Sure. It's like the foundation.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And a killer drummer on top of it. Jesus,
yeah.
He's a great drummer.
Not long after you became a member of the band, you guys recorded a live album in Heilbronn, Germany.
Yep, Heilbronn, Germany.
What were some of the highlights of that tour?
Oh, that was the first time I'd ever been to Europe. So it was just, like everything was fascinating. Everything. It was just, you can walk out the door of the hotel and there's just always something to look at. Actually, I think, personally, I think that's true anywhere that I travel. But specifically being in Europe and, being a place I've always kind of wanted to go.
Right.
So it was overwhelming for a little bit. Really satisfying. It was fun. Sometimes it wasn't fun. We hit London maybe like 4 days after that, the tube bombings in 2005.
Oh, wow.
And London traffic was unfucking believable.
Oh, gosh.
It was because nobody was taking the tubes.
Right.
Everybody was driving if they could. And it was just incredible. I can't even describe it. I've never seen anything like that. It was sort of apocalyptic. It took us 8 hours to get from, because we'd taken a ferry that day, so, and the ferry across the channel. Optimally from Calais, where we got on the ferry to London, it'd take you about like 5 hours. It took us 8 hours just from Dover, to get, to our, and it was at the Bottom Line, which is sort of a famous club in London. I don't know that it's there anymore, but there's lots of things I remember. I remember this. We were so hungry too, and we had like, basically we had to set up and play, and we got there so late.
After 8 hours of
yeah, but I remember this hamburger. We got burgers from the bar restaurant in the upstairs, and none of us could eat the burger. I've never had a hamburger like that before in my life. It was I'm pretty sure it was boiled.
Oh man!
It had this sort of sausagey texture, and it really kind of tasted. It had this kind of nutmeggy kind of, And it was like, I think that it may have been like the first kind of English food I ate ever. And I just remember it was just having all these stereotypes about English.
Yeah.
But fortunately, those have been busted, those stereotypes about English cooking, other visits to play music in the UK. But I remember that one specifically. And that Heilbronn show, I remember that was one of the best meals that we had in that tour in Germany. I do remember that. And I remember that show was really great. It was in this kind of cavern way underground. It seems like we had to go down four flights of stairs.
Wow.
Like big concrete stairs down into this kind of old beers looking cellar. And, it was a great show. Really sweaty. We were it was towards the end of the tour. You can't really tell it on the recording, which is great, but we were all kind of tired. And also we had this we ate a lot.
Feeling
before
sluggish.
the show. Yeah. I usually Mark and I could always eat well before a show and not, really have it drag us down. But I remember that being one of the rare times where like I had really gone over the limit and was really, really feeling it.
If you're a podcast addict like me, you might have thought about starting your own. I'm having a lot of fun creating and sharing my podcast, Frets with DJ Fey. It seemed daunting at first, and I had no idea how to proceed after recording my first episodes. Then I discovered Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped over 100,000 people, even knuckleheads like me, launch a podcast. The tools they provide make it incredibly easy to get your thing going. They'll also help you get your podcast into all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You get a great-looking website, audio players to drop into other websites, analytics, and tools to promote your podcast. They help with it all. Learn the ins and outs of podcasting through people who eat, drink, and breathe it. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast. Now, back to mine. Earlier this year, in March of 2021, the band announced on social media that Brian had made a decision to retire. And the end of that statement was, unfortunately, this means the Bottle Rockets can't continue as we know it. So at this point, you guys made a lot of great music, you made a lot of great albums, but the Bottle Rockets no longer play or perform or record.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened.
Yeah, Brian had quite a history both prior to and during his time with the Bottle Rockets, and was held in very high regard. Are you still in contact with him?
Every once in a while, yeah. He's been working at Killer Vintage. I've seen him a couple of times there. Yeah, I see Keith and Mark from time to time. We're still doing as much as we can with Marshall Crenshaw.
Oh yeah.
In fact, we're playing. I'm going to see them in a couple of weeks. Where we've got a few shows with him in Wisconsin and Illinois and Milwaukee and Chicago and yeah. I honestly it's disappointing, the end of the band, but not ultimately, I think, surprising. I think Brian had been kind of, winding down or, kind of reaching the end there for a while. And so, yeah, it wasn't exactly surprising. Disappointing, yes, but
he'd been at it for quite a while.
Yeah, certainly had.
I didn't really know Brian personally. I talked to him a few times, but back in 2014, he contacted me after a friend gave him my info about doing some artwork for Bottle Rockets merchandise.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
okay.
we had these email exchanges, like tote bags and coffee mugs and shirts. And nowadays it was all going to be like online stuff. Anyway, so we kind of had this back and forth email exchange, and sometimes there were like these long gaps because maybe he was real busy or I was real busy, and it wasn't like any hard deadline, but just funny little story. What I remember about it was I got all excited when he sent this one email saying, "Sorry, but we had this wacky idea to go in another direction with the merchandise." And he was thinking maybe it could be based on the upcoming album in some way. So I found that email. I was thinking about that, and I dug up that old email, and he said to me, "We finally came up with a name for the new album, and it might lend itself to better ideas than this one. You're going to be the first person outside the inner circle who knows its name, so keep it to yourself till we officially announce it soon. It's called South Broadway Athletic Club. Maybe you can start imagining things in that kind of direction." Yeah. So I remember that, and I remember I got kind of excited because immediately I thought of, I used to take a lot of pictures around St. Louis of old signs that were either,
I recognize the
ones that were probably going to ultimately get destroyed, or they were already kind of, ancient. Anyway, I had shot a photograph of that sign, and I mentioned that. I said, by the way, I got a great photo of that sign. And I emailed it to Brian, and I sent it to him, but it's not the one that ended up on the cover. So it was, my hopes were kind of dashed. I guess maybe it was the wrong angle or something. So I came close to having some album art for the Bottle Rockets. Anyway, well, how did the lockdown days of 2020 affect your guitar playing, if at all?
It was brutal. I kind of lost some chops. I felt like, I really did, just not really. I don't really play by myself, like what I do is always with other people. And, not doing that really, I really affected me. It did. I think, mentally too. Like I really was, after a while, I was really kind of going stir crazy.
Not bad.
I'd had and also like I'm just now kind of reaching a point playing with Sunvolt where like my stuff is back together. I just my guitars were kind of not really set up, and they need to be like the intonation is kind of wacky on them, and I had my pedal board all apart, and it's like I'm finally
rebuilding.
It's sort of back to how it was pre-lockdown.
Yeah, I think it affected a lot of people in a very similar way. But you've known Jay Farrar for years. You played on his solo album,
I did,
Terroir Blues,
and Okima and the Melody of Riot.
Oh yeah. And then now you're a member of Sunvolt.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about being in the band?
Feeling pretty good.
Yeah, what a great band.
Yeah, really.
That was in the early days after post Uncle Tupelo. I don't know if it was so much picking sides, but I do feel like in the early days I was kind of more in the Sunvolt camp.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
I kind of gravitated toward
Trace is such a strong record.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm feeling good about it. Yeah.
Very nice. So since joining Sunvolt, you guys have played out some shows.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, I actually I'm leaving tomorrow for there's a fly date, and we got 3 dates in Texas, and that's just off of 10 days kind of looping east, like Cincinnati, Louisville, down to the southeast, Memphis, make a loop back here. Yeah, so I've got some shows under my belt now with the band.
Feeling a lot better after that lockdown period now.
Much, yeah, much, yeah, yeah. Also feeling much better after that first show was rough, at least for me. Just I felt a little pressure.
Just hadn't done it in a while.
Yeah, I hadn't done it in a while. First show with a new band, and it was a hometown show as well, and. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad that first one is over with.
Yeah, I just
for certain.
Recently we did go out to see Wilco, and I got to be honest, we had tickets, but we were a little hesitant because at the time we just hadn't been getting out with everything going on now. But when they did announce that you had to bring your proof of vaccination card, we were feeling a lot more comfortable. So we did bring our cards, and we brought our masks, and it was great. And it wasn't like a big hassle. I mean, you came in, you showed your ticket, you showed your card, and
Sure.
People were, I thought people were being pretty cool. I mean, they were kind of keeping their distance for the most part, and and kind of being cool with masks. And I am really glad we got out, because it had been so long. I mean, it just felt so long since getting out to
Sure.
see a band.
Yeah.
So you have the Sunvolt tour coming up. What's next? What's on the horizon for Sunvolt after that?
There's nothing after this week until the new year, but the new year looks really, really busy. I think there's a new album, and I think we're really banking on the new year to get out and promote the album.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think we're here in March in the St. Louis area.
You don't know what venue?
I think at the pageant.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Yeah, I'm still a big fan. I like the pageant.
I don't mind going there to see if I want to see somebody and that's where they are. I'll go there. It's hard to find a spot in the pageant that sounds really good.
I will. Yeah, you are right about that. I think now that I've kind of figured out what places
Yeah.
I like, that's my disclaimer. I do like to see shows there if I can be where I think I'm going to get some good sound.
Yeah.
John Horton, thank you so much for doing this.
Sure. Yeah. My pleasure.
That song just makes me happy. From the Bottle Rockets' 2015 release, South Broadway Athletic Club, an album I was hoping to do the cover art for. That's XOYOU, featuring some wonderfully tasty lead guitar from the one and only John Horton. Next Friday, Sunvolt kicks off a multi-city tour of the U.S. The final show of that tour will be right here in their hometown of St. Louis at the Pageant.
Yes, it all fell apart in the shape of a heart. XOYOU.
Thanks again for tuning into Frets. Theme and incidental music by yours truly. Caffeine Buzz, courtesy of String Bean Coffee. Hope you'll join me again next time. Stay tuned.